Okay, so let's get started. So we started understanding the ecosystem concepts, and we understood the structure of ecosystem, and we understood its function. Next in line is understanding the services which we are able to get through the functioning of ecosystem. Now, when I say ecosystem is functional, I'm sure now you are able to understand what do we mean when we say that ecosystem is functional. For example, we are able to see any benefit that is coming from environment is net result of that functionality of ecosystem. And each one of them have a very important role to play. For long we have been thinking बहुत सालों से हम यही सोच रहे हैं कि whatever we are able to enjoy we can have that for free, and we don't value something which is often free. Say for example, clean air, clean water, clean soil. All these are very important aspects, but we assume they will be clean, but they are not clean by themselves. They are basically due to the functioning of ecosystem. Now, if there is some problem in the ecosystem, then there are problems with related to cleanliness. Okay, something which is not clean, that means that ecosystem is impaired or there is something wrong. So this concept of ecosystem services is basically to help us understand the importance of ecosystem so that we don't take it for granted. So this concept is coming up, and in future we may be seeing that there might be some minimal cost or some value attached to the ecosystem services that we are able to enjoy. Okay. For example, we have these 4 types of ecosystem services. Let me put everyone, because once someone joins, their mic remains on and it creates disturbance. At the end of the lecture, I will be taking attendance. I will also download, and randomly I will take attendances to cross-check the sheets that I download. And whoever comes after 5 minutes, I don't give attendance. Okay, whoever comes after 5 minutes, they can continue to attend the lecture, but they will not get the attendance for that session. So you may give any reason, but you have to be on time for lecture.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you add me in this team? I have not been added.
No, you do one thing. You send me your registration slip by email to me.
Email? Okay.
Yes, only then I will be able to add from now on. Because I have added whatever list I have got so far. Those who are coming now and joining, I need to see their registration slip. Otherwise, there will be difficulty towards the end of the semester.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Yes, please don't come in between and say hello. Whoever is not added, just drop an email with the registration slip. क्लास के बीच में डिस्टर्ब ना करें. We have a 15-minute lecture, so whatever you have to discuss in terms of attendance or any other thing, you have to mention that by email. कोई क्लास में डाउट है वो आप पूछिए, लेकिन कोई ऐसा रजिस्ट्रेशन रिलेटेड है, you can write an email. Okay, so we have this ecosystem services, which is the capacity of natural processes and components to provide goods and services. And the fruit that we enjoy, the clean air that I told you, water, and indirect benefits. For example, wood that we get. There are various goods and services that we get which satisfy our requirements, either directly or indirectly. Now, these ecosystem services are subset of ecological processes. ठीक है ना? They are subset of ecological processes and ecosystem structure. Now, if I am polluting water, how can I expect that I will be able to enjoy the goods and services which I am getting from that water body? So each service is the result of natural processes of total ecological subsystem of which it is a part. Now there are these natural processes which are the result of complex interaction between living and non-living components in an ecosystem through universal driving forces of matter and energy. And these are the four primary groups which are covered under these ecosystem services. For example, provisioning services, we have regulatory services, supporting services, and cultural services. Let us see one by one what they mean. Okay. We have these provisioning services which we can refer them by the food, water and other resources that we get. We know how we are able to get food. That's the primary need and that's what it is put at the first point. Food comes principally from agrosystems, agroecosystems which are agroecosystem. So these are not natural but artificial. And then we have marine and freshwater system. And then we also have food from forest, etc. Then we are also able to get raw materials. Some of these are used in construction. Some of these can serve as source of biofuel. What are biofuel? What do we mean by biofuel? Can anyone be able to tell?
Fuel that is made by decomposition of plants
organic
and animal
matter.
biomass.
Yeah, biomass basically. For example, these days we have petrol, which is blended with ethanol. We call it BD20. Generally, there are these terminology BD5, BD10, BD20. So this basically tells us the amount of biofuel that is present in the petroleum product. And then we have this fresh water, where we have the ecosystems which play a vital role in global hydrological cycle. And we now know that because of the disturbances in this global hydrological cycle, there are so many issues related to water, both in terms of quantity and quality. So you may have noticed that there might be some unseasonal rain in many parts of the world. And some places get a lot of water, some places get very less water. Okay. Now, that's one regulatory effect. Most of the times we're talking about average of rainfall, average rainfall. But that average can be misleading because it can be the data that we're getting from adding, say, 40 days of rainfall and dividing that with 40. So average can be misleading, median can be misleading. What we need is equal distribution of rainfall throughout the year. Not that 1 year's rainfall falling in a day or two or in a week. That's not desirable, that's not healthy. So this global hydrological cycle governs this freshwater cycle as well. And then there are many medicinal plants that we are able to get, which are used for treatment and human health purpose. So that's also one of the ecosystem services. Next, we have these regulating services. As the name is suggesting to us, regulating means they maintain the quality of air, soil, water, providing flood and disease control. So it regulates the environment. Under this, we can put, say, for example, air quality regulation, climate regulation. Climate regulation, for example, ecosystem influence climate both locally and globally. For example, at a local scale, changes in land cover can affect both temperature and precipitation. You may be able to see that those places which do not have a green cover or vegetation, that places will be displaying very wide variation in temperature. Compared to that with those places which has vegetation, temperature will be regulated, precipitation will be regulated. And you would have studied all this in school also. So you may be able to recall the effects of afforestation and deforestation. At global scale, ecosystem play an important role in climate by sequestering. Sequestering means uptaking and binding the greenhouse gases. One of the most important one is carbon dioxide. So those who are interested, they can read this as additional literature. Okay, carbon sequestration or carbon dioxide sequestration. What is the recent research that is going around in the world on this topic? It also plays a very important role in water regulation, timing and magnitude of runoff, aquifer recharge. These are all influenced by land cover. So any change in land cover would have alteration in the water cycle. For example, you may have noticed conversion of wetland to say residential complexes or shopping complexes, etc. is disastrous. So once we lose that water body, we always lose it forever. It's very difficult to bring it back. And then we have these croplands, the replacement of forest with croplands or with urban areas. Then we also have this erosion regulation, where vegetation play a very important role. Say, for example, if there is a barren piece of land, rainfall occurs. Rain will dislodge the soil particle that would lead to soil erosion. On the other hand, if the land is covered with a layer of grass or vegetation, rainfall will not be able to dislodge that soil and make it migrate from that site. So that will prevent erosion. So that's the role of vegetation. Water purification and waste treatment. Ecosystems also serve as a source of impurities removal. For example, before groundwater is polluted, soil above it should be polluted. If soil remains clean, it will act as a filter, removing and decomposing any organic matter which is getting introduced either through waste. Disease regulation is another important aspect of environment. So you may be able to comprehend this and relate that with the present scenario that we all are going through, because changes in ecosystem can directly change the abundance of human pathogens. We're writing cholera is just an example, but cholera was responsible for earlier epidemics and pandemics, but now we have much more severe illnesses that can bring the whole world to grinding halt, and we are going through one such. So disease regulation is also an important feature of ecosystem. Pest regulation, pollination, and natural hazard regulation. So all these are a very important function of ecosystem which you are able to enjoy a service. Then we have the supporting services. Okay. Supporting services means those which are able to be there for production of other services, provisioning, for example, and regulating services. They differ from provisioning and regulating and cultural services in that aspect that their impacts on people are often indirect. So, for example, if I'm removing a forest, immediate effect would be maybe if I'm getting some wood and, say, for example, fruits from that forest, that would be immediately gone. But if I see there is loss of rainfall, so that's a regulating effect, but it is in turn supported by this forest. And other examples of supporting services are erosion regulation, which can categorize both as supporting and regulating service. Now that depends on the time scale and immediacy of the impact on people. Soil formation, you all would have understood in your school days. Okay, for example, we get the soil from a parent rock which undergoes physical and chemical weathering processes, and the end product of these processes are basically the soil, different type of soil that we're able to see. primary production, nutrient cycling, water cycling. These are all examples of supporting services. And then we have the cultural services. And many times we attach certain value to a place because someone might be finding some spiritual or some development, cognitive developmental aspects, reflection, recreation, aesthetics. All these are related to cultural services. For example, you would have seen that whatever is the type of environment that determines the type of societies that we are able to see. For example, those places where there is ocean, we have a different set of cultural habit or cultural diversities there compared to say mountains or those places which are close to river or in desert. So cultural diversity is another important factor of ecosystem services. It also provides spiritual and religious values, and it also acts as traditional and formal knowledge system which are developed by different cultures. They also add immense value to education. Ecosystems can be used for educational purposes in several aspects. And then not to mention the inspiration values that they are able to provide. Other than that, anything which is very clean and green, we associate that with high value of aesthetics, social relations, sense of place. Many people value the sense of place. Okay, for example, if someone is associated with a particular city, they are able to feel that they are home once they get into that city. So this is associated with recognized features of their environment. Now, for example, I'm living close to a wetland, but in the say some decades, if that wetland is gone, I will lose that sense of place because something that I was associating to be present there is not there. So these are examples of cultural services. Recreation, ecotourism, so and cultural heritage values. These are some of the major aspects that ecosystem is able to offer. So far, we all are thinking that these are for granted and they will remain free. In several countries, they already have started this concept of pay as you use. For example, if you go to a clean forest for camping or for any other activity, there is some minimal charge that is levied. So what that does, it makes you value for the ecosystem and you behave in a responsible manner. So that concept is slowly catching up. You may be able to hear and learn more about it as you get into your professional careers. Okay, any questions so far? What we have gone through?
No, sir.
Okay. So next, we will be understanding the energy flow in ecosystem. So energy flow is a very important concept in an ecosystem, and it starts with the energy from sun and how this light energy is converted to chemical energy by producers to not only power their own metabolism but also to start the overall life processes that we are able to see in the ecosystem. Now we have understood that there is never 100% energy efficiency. Whenever there is movement of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level, there is some loss. And one of the loss mechanisms is energy goes for the metabolic activities, which we can call maintenance. Energy going for maintenance of cellular activities. Then there is energy for respiration, and then there is energy which is lost as heat. So that brings us to this concept of 10% rule. That means of all the energy that is assimilated or that is getting into one trophic level, when it goes, then when this energy goes to next trophic level, just 10% of this goes. So from second trophic level to third trophic level, whatever has come to the second trophic level, 10% of that only will go to the next trophic level and so on. So that means there is energy loss. If you look at this diagram, you will be able to account for energy loss. So the yellow line is indicating the movement of heat, and the red line, okay, red arrow is indicating energy that is stored in biomass. I mean, energy that is stored in animals, that will be in the form of chemicals and chemical bonds. For example, there is loss of heat whenever there is photosynthesis, whenever there is primary production, and then whenever there is growth of consumers, detritus feeders. So heat will be released as part of these processes. So at each step in a food chain, energy is lost as heat, and each organism takes in energy to meet its own requirement, and energy that is taken in is converted to motion and heat. This motion is basically metabolic activity. So obviously 10% or less of the energy consumed will be available to the next consumer. So this diagram illustrates this concept of energy loss. So from producer, say suppose I'm counting, so you can add any amount of energy that is present in one of this area along with this tree. You can include the grass also. This is an example of producer, and this is the flow of energy going from producer to primary consumer, and then to secondary consumer, and finally these producers and consumers, once they complete their life cycle, they are used by these detritus feeders and decomposers. Even in that process, heat is released. That means whenever there is organic matter, it's decomposition. Okay, the decomposition of organic matter plus any bacteria or fungi you can add. Okay, or any other way of life. Organic matter, when it is under decomposition, the final products will be CO2, H2O, and some heat. And depending on the process, you may be also able to see some new biomass, new cells that are forming. So organic matter will serve as source of energy and source of carbon. So once we have gone through this 10% rule, next comes in the energy pyramid. So if you look at that diagram that is on the right of this slide, we have this producers. Yes.
So if only 10% of the energy is said to be transferred from one pyramid level to another, then by using solar panels, are we really disturbing the laws of nature?
No, we are not taking away anything from producers. Okay. Suppose if you're using solar panels, it's not that you are diverting or you are taking anything in excess, that the solar energy will not be getting to the first level of trophic chain. Okay, first trophic level of food chain. Got it? We're not taking anything. It is already available in excess. As we go, you will be able to see when I come to this part. Like diagram है वहाँ पे आएंगे तो ये वाला जब energy flow diagram in a lake as an example I'll show. So okay, since you have asked now, see there is incoming solar radiation. If you use this, okay, it is in lakhs, multiple lakhs, almost 11 lakhs. That is the unit of solar radiation that is coming. There is a lot more that is available in excess to this. So see from this, so much is absorbed. Okay, this 1000 is absorbed, and this is the amount which is not getting absorbed. Okay, we'll come to it, but since you asked, I thought I'll explain this. Now, that means whenever we are able to use this 10% rule, we will be able to construct an energy pyramid, because 90% or more of consumed energy is used by the organism, and only a small amount is passed to the next level. So the entire system in essence is inefficient. So if you look at this 1000 calories which is produced by these primary producers, from there is a grasshopper which is primary consumer, it is able to just have this 100 calories. From this primary consumer, we have this bird, so which is secondary consumer, so it is taking 10 calories, and finally we have at the top, say for example an eagle or vulture, which is the tertiary consumer, which is just able to get 1 calorie. That means what was present at the base as 1000, if you build an energy pyramid and you see, we just have 1 calorie that is going from out of these 1000 to this. That means, now the important concept here is, that means to maintain this one tertiary consumer, you can imagine how much of producer energy should be there. Now what will happen if you are going on removing these patches or removing those habitats? Okay, What will happen if there is habitat destruction? Okay, it will interfere with this, obviously in this place as well. That means anything that is going wrong here at this point will affect throughout. So just keep this concept with you. We'll come to it when we go to understand biodegradation, biotransformation, and related to that, biomagnification, bioconcentration, and bioaccumulation. So that means the higher an organism is on the food chain, greater amount of biomass is required to support that organism. Now you may be able to understand with this concept why there is so much of disturbances in the environment. You may say that, okay, I'm just taking this piece of land for a home or for building my office or for industry, but then effect will be seen somewhere. Okay, that brings us to another concept of net productivity. That means the base level of food web or food chain needs to be fully functional so that we are able to have a normal functional ecosystem. Okay. Now, net primary productivity is the energy that producers can make available to community at one time. Net productivity determines how much life an ecosystem can support, and it is generally measured in calories or as biomass. And when we are measuring it in terms of biomass, we use these units gram per square meter. Now look at this image. What we have is different ecosystem, and in the brackets the productivity. Now from this diagram, which one is least productive? Just observe this diagram. Just go through all the values. For example, we have desert. Desert. Why it is less?
Due to the lack of availability of water.
Lack of vegetation.
Okay. Just go on asking why. You will be able to end up with a whole sort of different set of knowledge. One by one, let us go one by one. Someone said that lack of water. Someone said no vegetation. But why it is lack of water? Note down this question. You don't have to answer. Note it down. Asha, which one is the most productive in this diagram?
Forest.
Now the objective and the small homework for you, or whenever you find some time, you can note down these readings and try to make out why it is so. Why it is obvious, but once you go down, making these concepts simpler, you will be able to have a whole set of information available to you. Actually, open ocean is also not very productive. I'm not going to give you the answer. Same thing with tundra. So
the problem with desert is that it cannot hold the water because of the sand.
That is one reason. That is related. That means that is related to the structure of ecosystem. Deserts have that sort of structure, which does not allow them to have a high water holding capacity, which plants and vegetation can use. Okay. Now, what about open ocean? Why it is not very productive?
Salt water, maybe.
I'm not going to give you that answer. Also, we can have that covered tomorrow if you want to. But just think, why open ocean are also not very productive?
So the vegetation is too much at the bottom.
Be careful what you are answering. Someone
because of denser
density, salt, that's not the reason.
So because sunlight cannot penetrate deep below, like it means.
That is fine, but if you look at the area, okay, you don't have to go to the depth of the water body. But if you look at the area, our whole planet is covered by water. 70% of our planet is covered by water. So if you look at the area-wise, oceans should be one of the most productive ecosystem, but they are not. Okay, just have this question with you. We'll come back and revisit tomorrow if you are not able to find the answer.
Sir, but that's a simple question. That should be because a lot of the life form there is depends on land. I mean, we were not adapted to live in marine biology.
We are
Ecology.
not. We are not. But why primary productivity is also not very high?
Uh, so
Think
sorry, I
about it.
couldn't hear you. Could you repeat your question?
Why net productivity is low? You will not be able to answer now, but think
Because
about
they
it.
don't have any energy converters. Like we have autotrophs here, which convert the solar
But
energy
then
into
water,
something.
sea. Acha, that brings
We
me to a
don't have
guess.
such stuff.
The oceans are nitrogen deficient.
Who is that? Who answered this one? नाम बताओ जरा. Vikas. Oceans are what?
Nitrogen deficient. Nitrogen.
Very good. Very good. That's the answer. Okay, he has given me the answer. I will expect others to go and do this reading for themselves to understand why oceans are nitrogen deficient and why it is affecting the productivity of open ocean. Light is not the proper answer. It's basically nutrients. So oceans are not very rich in nutrients, both macro and micro. Okay, so let us move forward. Yes.
Sir, at my end, a screen is not visible. Can I leave and join again?
Yes, you can. Who is this?
Shivam Kumar, sir.
Okay, you log in and log out and log in. I'll add you. Okay, next we have is this concept of food web. And a food chain is much simpler. That is basically linear arrangement. Whereas food web is a complex model of energy flow in a community. If you look at this image, you will be able to understand what are we referring to. So these arrows that are there in the diagram, they indicate the direction in which energy flow is taking place from one organism to the another. That means a single organism, just circle any one organism that you are able to see in this image and see in how many food chains it is involved. That means multiple food chains make up a food web. A single organism will be involved in several food chains and some will occupy several trophic levels as well. Now, what will happen if one or more of these species that you are able to see get extinct? I'm not going to give you that answer. It is a very simple and straightforward concept. Just think over it. And what are the reasons which are making it be extinct? Just think about that also.
So the chain will be broken, hence it will affect others in the number of animals which are lower in the food chain, decrease in the animals which are above in food chain.
Yani ki if we have a small change, it is going to create a big impact. Suppose I'm just removing this
Dominoes effect.
Just one of this I'm removing, and we already are seeing the effect of low number of birds in the environment and its indirect and direct effects. Okay, so now we will be able to understand the importance of environment and our own action and how that action is contributing to ecosystem services getting to the point where we may not be able to enjoy those services that we are able to have right now. So far we have understood about this production and consumers. Okay, but a very important class of organisms in the environment are decomposers, or they are also known by this word Death Eaters, something which feeds upon dead matter. So here we have decomposers in the form of bacteria and fungi, which are the dominating organisms. And as I told you, these are heterotrophic by nature. They are not autotrophic. Don't get confused with this terminology. Okay, you know what is autotrophic? Whenever we are referring about decomposition, we are referring heterotrophic growth. Bacteria and fungi are prime examples. So these use external digestion to break organic matter into inorganic substances. And then we have the detritivores. These are the animals which feed on dead plant matter. And then we have scavengers. So these are animals that feed on dead animal flesh. Just see the differences. What do we mean when we say decomposers, when we say detritivores, and when we say scavengers? They play a very important role in releasing the energy that is present in the biomass in the form of chemical bonds. So energy release, okay, and nutrients back to the environment. So we are going towards this concept of energy and matter cycling that we will understand through this concept of biogeochemical cycle. So what is a food web? We know food web are basically food chains which are interconnected through euryphagous organism and omnivorous. Okay. And analysis of food web is important. So you may be asking why we have to understand this concept. It is important to understand because only then we will be able to have these ecosystem dynamics and the ecological interrelationship and dynamics of food webs. So it allows us to know the range of trophic structure that is existing in food webs with varying level of competition and interconnection. So that means there is a variety of arrangement of food chain into a food web. So next we'll understand what are the types and patterns of food webs that are there. Someone is trying to log in back. Let me just allow that. Okay, so let us see what are the types and patterns of food webs that are there. First one is we have these three types: connectedness, energy flow, functional. So connectedness, that means these are based on the concept of who consumes whom, which emphasizes on the feeding interrelationship. This is also known as a topological food web. Next, we have this energy flow food web. So in this type, energy flow is through the food web, which is estimated. So connection between populations are quantified. Say, for example, one organism is there at one trophic level, another one is at higher trophic level. So the connection between these populations are quantified by flux of energy between resources and consumers. Next, we have functional food webs, and this is on the basis of impact of species on structure of community. This also emphasizes the feeding interrelationship within the topological food web. So functional food webs shows the feeding relationship within the topological food webs. Okay, that brings us to this example of a lake. We know that there are different ecosystems. We have, for example, say tropical rainforest, lake, pond, river, ocean.
So can you show the previous slide again?
Yes.
So here, energy flow food webs. So how are they different from any other food web? I mean, energy is being transferred in every food web, isn't it?
Yes. These are the patterns that would be there. For example, in this type, there is this emphasis on connection between population, whereas here it is showing the feeding relationship. Okay, And this one is quantified by the flux of energy between resources and consumers, whereas this one is just specific to feeding pattern.
Okay, so
Okay, now there are so many ecosystems, but we will take an example as a lake. Okay, and here I'm referring to a normal functional lake. That means I will expect to find something which starts from primary producers, and at the top level I would expect to find fish. What is fish?
sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So the guy named Shivam who asked your permission to leave and re-enter, you haven't let him in yet.
वो दिख ही नहीं रहा है. I'm not able to see him.
You're not able to see him?
No.
I'll let him know.
अभी दिखा है.
Okay, sir.
Yes, now I'm allowing him in. Okay, the point is, if you see that, what did I ask? What is a fish? Absence of fish in water body, what does it signify? I told you that.
Of nitrogenous waste.
नहीं, दोबारा बोलो.
Sir, absence of nitrogenous waste.
नहीं, not only nitrogen. That means there is something wrong with that ecosystem.
So energy is not being transferred efficient.
वो सब technical terms हैं. Energy not getting transferred. That means basic thing that you can derive, that ecosystem is not functional. There is something wrong. समझ गए? So this is an indicator organism. And it is indicating the health of ecosystem. अभी clear है? किसी भी water body में, if you are not able to see fish, first thing that you will infer is that this water body is not able to support fish growth. Now, when I'm saying fish is at the top level of trophic level in a lake. So you have to go down in a sequence and find out where it is not able to support fish growth. Got it? Concept ko samjho, and it will be very enjoyable for you to learn and remember. Okay, take this example of energy flow diagram in a lake. So here we have this 11,88,724 units of energy that is there through incoming solar radiation. Now out of this, 11,87,610 is not getting absorbed. That means out of all this energy, this is the primary production step. Now autotrophs are just able to take up this much. Now from here, it goes to different trophic levels. This for your understanding, okay? You see that decomposers are taking some, then herbivores and respiration. Within this, very little is used. If you see what is non-utilized. This is not complete in all aspects. That is why you will not be able to, if you count this in terms of 10%, okay, that you will not be able to do here. This is basically to help you understand how energy flows from solar radiation to this top level carnivores, for example. So this part is something which is getting utilized, this whole part, ye pura part, and this is non-utilized energy.
Sir, you were sure that it was 10% or 1%?
10% है ना, एक level से दूसरे level में 10% ही जाता है.
Okay.
Okay, so we stop here for this lecture and we'll continue further in tomorrow's class. And I'll quickly go through the attendance. I'm starting with information technology. And if someone's name is not there, you don't have to panic. You just let me know. I will note down and I will add you in the teams. Or if someone is not at all added, then you have to drop an email with your registration slip. Okay, yes, Jan. And if someone is not responsive, I'm going to mark absent. Yes, Jan. Absent. Aruba Tashmi. Absent. Ishan Gupta. Absent. Anurag Gupta.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Anurag is present. Ayush Raj.
Yes, sir.
Kumar Sanyam. Shiv Shankar Prajapati. Mohammad Faizan.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So please remain attentive. Otherwise, I'm not going to give another chance. Vishwak Sena Reddy. Absent. Rajkumar.
Yes, sir.
Abhay Kumar Sharma. Absent. Parijit Milind. Rajkumar Ravi.
Present, sir.
Rajkumar Ravi.
Sir. Present, sir.
Okay. Roshan Kumar Shukla.
Present, sir. Sir, last time you said Aditya Kumar Misra.
Abhay Kumar.
Abhay Kumar.
Okay, after Abhay it was Rajkumar. Abhay Kumar.
Present, sir.
What's your roll number?
Sir, 181.
Okay, Roshan Kumar Shukla.
Present, sir.
Ronit Kumar.
Present, sir.
Piyush Kumar.
Present, sir.
Siddharth Kumar.
Present, sir.
Praveen Kumar.
Present, sir.
Kashif. Harsh Narayan.
Harsh Narayan, present, sir.
Yash Padiyar.
Yes, sir.
Pranshu Shekhar. Okay, Pranshu Shekhar absent. Anshul.
Yes, sir. Present, sir. Pransu Sekhar.
Vikash Oran is present. Gyan Ranjan.
Yes, sir.
Kumar Harshvardhan.
Present, sir.
Manas Mishra.
Present, sir.
Prince Aryan. Absent. Anubhav Thakur.
Present, sir.
Himanshu Raj.
Present, sir.
Aditya Dev Mande.
Present, sir.
Adarsh Ranjan.
Present, sir.
Tarun Agarwal. Madi Reddy Akhil.
Present, sir.
Siddharth Saraf.
Present, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Please don't intervene in between.
Okay.
Harshit.
Present, sir.
Amol Khaudar.
Present, sir.
Gaurang Dikshit.
Present, sir.
Praveen Dikshit.
Present, sir.
Sudarshan Bhagat.
Present, sir.
Harsh Azad. Okay, Harsh Azad is absent. Singh Aditya. Aditya Sunil. Absent. Samarth Pratap Singh.
Present, sir.
Akarsh. Absent.
Present, sir.
Nikhil Verma.
Present, sir.
Sir, Akash present.
Yes, I am marked present. Naveen Raj. Prakash Majhi. Reshma Kumari.
Present, sir.
Okay. Sandhil Agarwal.
Present, sir.
Aditya Dubey.
Sir, present.
Avi Jain.
Present, sir.
Gauravanand,
Present, sir.
Mudit Rai,
Present. Present, sir.
Ayushman Tavir,
Present, sir.
Sayam Jain,
Present.
Prabhat Kumar, absent. Rutuja Rathod, Swarn Shekhar,
Present, sir.
Bansal Mannan,
Present, sir.
Sanjay. Okay, Ayush Singh,
Present.
Asmit Kumar, Somideep,
Present, sir. Present, sir.
Mohit Kumar, Shailesh,
Present, sir.
Piyush Ghosh,
Present, sir.
Deepak Chaudhary,
Present, sir.
Ayush.
Sir. Present, sir.
Okay, okay. So out of 67,
Sir.
yes, tell me, who is missing now?
Sir, you did not call my name.
What's your name?
Aditya Kumar Mesra.
It's not there. So you drop an email, okay?
Okay, sir.
Sir.
With your registration slip. अभी जिनका भी नाम नहीं लिया गया है, please drop an email with your registration slip.
Sir, you have called my name. My roll number is 10015. But मेरे
Why did not you respond?
issue हो गई थी, so I could not.
Then you have to make sure you don't do that next time. What's your name?
Aruba.
I'm giving you attendance this time, but next time you will not be able to.
Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
अभी जिनका भी छूट गया है वो लोग अभी अगली बार से ध्यान से अटेंड करेंगे लोग.
Excuse me, sir.
जिनका yes.
But my name is not.
Sir, you don't call my name.
जिसका भी नाम नहीं आया है, just drop a message. I'll check that. Okay, I'm going to electrical triple E. Please pay attention. बाद में दोबारा नाम नहीं बुलाएंगे. और जो लोग अटेंडेंस नहीं दे रहे हैं म्यूट रख सकते हैं. You don't have to unmute yourself. Okay. Mohammed Mubashir. Daksh Abrol.
Present, sir.
Rushil Gupta.
Present, sir.
Priyanshu.
Present, sir.
Sudhuma. Sudhuma Munda absent. Sapane Sodan absent. Rahul Hembram.
Yes, sir.
Kumar Yash.
Yes, sir. Present, sir.
Okay, Vishal Kumar.
Present, sir.
Aditya Kumar.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Boom.
Aditya.
Present, sir.
Adil.
Yes, sir.
Saurav.
Present, sir.
Saurav Kumar Devedi.
Present, sir.
Amir Jha.
Present, sir.
Shivam Kumar.
Present, sir.
Aryan Sinha.
Present, sir.
Ankit Raj.
Present, sir.
Avinash Kumar.
Present, sir.
Nisha Rani. Absent. Kumar Saurav.
Present, sir.
Shauri Singh. Ishan Prabhat. Mohammad Jamshid. Ishan Prabhat.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Present.
Mohammad Jamshid.
Present, sir.
Aniket Kumar.
Present, sir.
Pulkit Revdi. Aditya Kumar Mishra.
Present, sir.
R.G. Mahanti.
Present, sir.
Ashish Bhardwaj. Shivang.
Present, sir. Shivang Aaron.
Okay. What's your roll number? What's your roll number?
10356.
Okay. Shruti Shikha.
Present, sir.
Ankita. Ankita Ayushi.
Present, sir.
What's your roll number?
Sir, 10360.
Okay. Vedant Gupta.
Present, sir.
Khushi Kumari.
Present, sir.
Anushka Singh.
Present, sir.
Sujit Kumar. Pratik Ghosh.
Present.
Anish Mishra. Rishabh Sarkar. Saurav Meena.
Present, sir.
Shoaib Ashish. Shubhashis Saha, absent. Tanmay Raj.
Present, sir.
Mayuk Bandyopadhyay.
Present, sir.
Mayank.
Present, sir.
Chaitanya Khare.
Present, sir.
Akash.
Chaitanya
Akshay
Khare,
Pandey.
present.
Okay, I marked you present. Akshay Pandey.
Yes, sir.
Aditi Soumya.
Yes, sir.
Aniket Saurav. Ankit Kumar Gupta.
Present, sir.
Chetna Motilal.
Present, sir.
Abhishek Pathak.
Present, sir.
Shashank Shekhar.
Present, sir.
Okay. Alokik Prakash. Absent. Divyan Singh.
Present, sir.
Samskar Das. Praveen Rawat.
Present, sir.
Anish Kumar.
Sir, Anish Kumar Barnwal. Present, sir.
हाँ तो ध्यान दोगे ना. अक्षय त्रिपाठी.
Present, sir.
राहुल. रिजुल. यशराज.
Sir, you present, sir. Sir, Rahul Mandi present, sir.
Were you sleeping?
Yashraj present.
No, sir, you didn't
What was
call
the
out
mic
my
got
full name,
muted,
that's
sir.
why, sir.
Okay, Hitesh Rati.
Present, sir.
Harshit. Sunila. Aviraj Kumar. Okay, Aviraj Kumar.
Present, sir. Present, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll meet tomorrow for next lecture.
Sir, can we leave now?
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
So can we leave now?
Thank you. Yes, you can leave. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
जिनका अटेंडेंस हो जाता है वो
Thank
लॉग
you,
आउट कर
sir.
सकते हैं.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, हम
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.